Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guests today are the fine folks from the League of Women Voters of Connecticut. We'll meet them when we come back, so stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guests today are from the League of Women Voters of Connecticut. First up is Judy Dolphin. She has got so many titles, co-president of the Southeastern Connecticut League of Women Voters, also a director, the state board member. Your first time on the show, so welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here.
So let's get your titles straight, because there were so many there that I was, you're the co-president of League of Women Voters of Southeastern Connecticut.
Correct.
And you're also on the board for the state.
That is correct.
So let's talk about, for those that may not know, what is the League of Women Voters? What's it all about?
Well, first of all, the name is a misnomer in a way. We've been the League of Women Voters for 90-some years, but we've had men members since 1974. So we are really a league of voters.
Right.
But we didn't change our name because you lose history when you do that.
Good point, yeah.
On the other hand, men are very much part of the organization, and we welcome men as members and as people involved in the work that we do. The League's been around for a long time, as I said, 90 plus years. It was created as an outgrowth of the suffrage movement. And when finally in August 1920, the 19th Amendment was passed, giving women the right to vote, immediately the women who were working hard on suffrage came together and said, now we have acquired suffrage, we need to make it work. We need to vote, we need to educate voters, we need to be active, and that was when the League of Women Voters was created. So we're a pretty old group. Now, some of us are older than others.
We were talking off the air, and so I'm aware of two big misconceptions. One is that, first of all, there are men involved in the League of Women Voters, for sure. Now, were they involved right from the beginning, or did that just kind of happen later on?
No, but you know, suffrage could not have been passed without men because women couldn't vote.
That's a good point.
It took the men of the 36 states that ratified the 19th Amendment to pass.
Yeah.
And so we talk about the struggle of women, but man, we couldn't have done it without those guys, that's for sure.
You know, it's interesting. How was a League of Women Voters formed back when only men were able to vote in the first place?
No, it was after.
It was after,
It was after the passage of the amendment.
Okay.
And actually the president of the American Women's Suffrage Association was Carrie Chapman Catt. And she went to the next meeting of that national organization and said, we're done being working for suffrage, we have it. Now we have to work for informed voters.
Right,
and that's when the League was formed.
And the other misconception is, aside from, well, the name League of Women Voters has two misconceptions. What you said, men were involved eventually, but also women voters. It's not just about getting the word out about voting. There's an activist arm to the organization.
Absolutely, there's an activist arm. When Carrie Chapman Catt established the League of Women Voters, she said we had three tasks. And goodness, we're still doing the same tasks after all this time. One is voter education, and that involves voter registration. It involves having opportunities for forums, candidate debates, blah, 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 all the things that most people see the League of Women Voters doing. The second was having forums on issues that were near and dear to the heart of voters. And so, for example, this week, Tuesday night, we had a forum on closing the achievement gap in the schools in New London County. I mean, we have a big problem in Connecticut with the achievement gap. And so that was a public forum bringing educators to the public to talk about the issue of closing that gap. So that's another arm of the League, and that's public information, not necessarily only on voting issues. And then the third is advocacy, because if we believe in something and we've studied something and we have strong feelings about a particular issue, we can't sit on our hands. We have to get up and advocate for that. And so we lobby legislators, we talk to our Congress people and our local legislators, and we are a very active organization in those three realms.
And there are the League of Women Voters in every state in the
Yes,
United States.
Absolutely.
And if they're all as passionate as you guys are, as I chat with you today, there's no stopping this organization. Really.
I certainly hope not.
Now, what other issues? Now, you're a historian as far as the League of Women Voters
not really,
go.
but
You can go back a little ways. You know, you said there are still similar things that you're fighting for today. What's changed issues-wise? You know, how different is the world now?
You know, I don't think the issues have changed all that much. I think it's just more so, if I could put it that way. For example, right now, in this week, League of Women Voters all over this state of Connecticut and other people as well are urging our legislators to pass language that would amend the Constitution of Connecticut to eliminate barriers to absentee voting. And this is something I just learned recently, that in the Constitution is the direction for when you're allowed to have an absentee ballot. Well, you shouldn't fill constitutions with little details like that. That's administrative detail. That doesn't belong in the Constitution. And therefore, nobody can really say that we can have a no excuse absentee ballot, because it's in the Constitution. So there's a bill that's proposed to call for a constitutional amendment process which would eliminate those specific reasons for absentee ballots and allow that to be on the books, well, take it out of the Constitution, I guess.
Just to kind of make it easier on the eyes,
exactly.
if nothing else.
So we have worked on constitutional amendments for years, and I don't know whether your viewers understand that process, that constitutional amendment.
Let's talk about that.
It gets a little, it's confusing to people. So what has to happen is that the House and Senate have to pass the language for a constitutional amendment, the language that would appear on the ballot. That's 1 year. The next year, or the next session, the same language has to be adopted by both the House and the Senate. So you have to have 2 sessions, both houses each session adopting the exact same language. If they change one word, you're back to the drawing board.
How does anything get passed or get
Well,
accomplished?
that's why constitutional amendments are very hard to do.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, if it has passed 2 sessions in exact same language, then that language goes on the ballot for the voters of Connecticut to approve or disapprove changing the Constitution. And it's limited to only that issue. I had someone ask me the other day, well, doesn't that open us up to a constitutional convention? No, it does not. It's a whole different process.
How does an issue come across the desk of the League of Women Voters for them to decide that they want to lobby on behalf of it or to take action?
Okay. Well, the League has this process that's very cumbersome, and it's why we have credibility. The process is that let's use Connecticut as an example. Connecticut, people in leagues in Connecticut want to study a particular issue. They have to propose that issue with a justification, with a scope, and it has to go to the Connecticut League Convention. And now to council, but that's a whole other thing.
Right.
Okay, so they go to convention, and they have to convince members of leagues around the state that this is a good thing for us to study, that it fits what we do, it's nonpartisan, it has opportunity for legislation, all the things that are criteria. How much is it going to cost? Who's going to work on it? And if ultimately the convention attendees vote for it, then it becomes a study. So you've already spent 6 months in that process.
Right. But I can see how the credibility comes into play. If you're studying it and you're that well informed about it, once it gets out of there.
But you're not even there yet.
No.
No, you've just gotten approval to study.
Okay.
And then you've got to prepare the study materials, and then you have to get that out to all the leagues in your state. It would happen national level. It would be even bigger.
Your term cumbersome really fits.
Exactly.
In this case.
And then you have to have a schedule for the study. And then when you get the study done, you have to prepare a list of consensus questions. And then each league has to come to agreement, that's what consensus means, agreement on how they feel about those issues.
Right.
And they can either have agreement or no agreement. When you're finished and you have the entire process completed, you hand it over to the state board, who then decides on the final language, and only on those things where you had agreement. So if you had a study that included 25 points and only 10 of them were agreed upon, you could only work on those 10.
I gotcha.
And the same thing happens at the national level. We just finished a national education study. We haven't even seen the results of it, and they went in November.
You say cumbersome, but again, it's also to your credit. That
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And so what we have is we have this, I mean, I think there's a struggle between issue-oriented organizations and something that's more broad-based like the League. We try to do a lot of different things, and we only take action on those things that we've had agreement on over all the years. And so people who are very interested in a particular issue, they want to work in an organization that only focuses on that issue, where the League is much broader. And sometimes we say it's to our detriment because it's very hard to attract people to an organization that, you know, carries all these baskets of issues.
Hopefully some people can appreciate
but
that.
But at the same time, there really is a credibility there, because
right.
Our legislators know, our Congress people
You're well informed.
That we don't just speak.
Right.
We know what's going on.
We have to take a break. I want you to give out the website so people can go and learn a little bit about it. What is it?
Sure. www.lwvct, so League of Women Voters Connecticut.org.
All right.
And that's our state website.
Judy Dolphin is the co-president of the Southeastern Connecticut chapter of League of Women Voters.
Well,
is it a chapter?
Not really.
Just a section?
Yeah, it's an organization.
Okay.
It's an organization.
And also, you're director. You're on the state board, the state board member. So much on that business card. But thank you so much for being on the show.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting us.
More to get to, so we will. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. We'll be back. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. We continue our conversation with the fine folks from the League of Women Voters of Connecticut. This time around, it's Administrator Jean Rabineau who joins us on the show, also a first-timer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's talk about that title, Administrator. What does it mean?
Well, basically it means that I am the sole office staff for the State League of Women Voters.
Wow, the whole staff.
I am the office. If people ask me what I do, I brew the coffee, I vacuum the rugs,
wow.
I read the contracts.
Well, when you're talking about a nonprofit, usually you wear many feathers in
many
the cap,
hats,
right? Yeah.
Many hats. We do have other staff members. The League of Women Voters of Connecticut runs the Capital Information and Tours program in Hartford at the Capitol and Legislative Office Building. We have a director for that program, and she has a paid and volunteer staff working below her. 4 or 5 paid employees and maybe 20 or 30 volunteers at any given moment. But if you call the state office in Hamden, I'm it.
Okay, so you're the administrator for the state office in Hamden, and then you also have your own district, right?
Yes. What we call leagues are the individual chapters or organizations that make up the state league. There are some of what we call members at large, but by and large, if you're a member of the League of Women Voters of Connecticut, it's because you've joined at the local level. So my league is Bridgeport area, and includes Bridgeport, Stratford, Trumbull, Shelton, Monroe.
Okay.
There are other leagues which are single town leagues. Southeast, where Judy Dolphin comes from, is basically an entire corner of the state.
Now, we're talking off the air a little bit. There might be a time where you will get around to some of the other leagues around the state?
Yes, there's a lot of cooperation between local leagues. If somebody wants a moderator for a debate out of town, and we try very hard to make sure that our debates are moderated by somebody who's not actually voting in that district, I will go anywhere pretty much that anyone asks me. And we have a whole crew of people who will say, I'll go anywhere in the 4th Congressional District, or I'll go anywhere in the western side of the state or what eastern side of the state or whatever. But similarly, I know that if I'm in a bind, I can pick up the phone and I can call the East Shore League or the Southeast League or the Hartford League, and I can say, is there any chance you can send me a moderator on such and such a date? And they might be able to do it.
Now, the idea is to have somebody basically from out of town, so to speak, right?
If possible.
Not someone who's as plugged into the local politics. So,
Yes.
So it's like less bias in people's minds, basically? Or?
Well, what we say is the league doesn't have a party. But unfortunately, many of our league members do.
Right.
In fact, most
people are
of us
human beings,
and
they have views.
most of us have party affiliations.
Right.
And in fact, some of us have run for office.
Right.
So we try to make sure that we're perceived by the candidates and by the voters of the person who's actually doing a debate not being plugged into one side or the other.
Right. Now, let's expound on that a little bit with advocacy, because we kind of wanted to make it known that the League of Women Voters will, there are many issues that you will lobby on behalf of, but you're nonpartisan. It's important to note that, right?
We try when we lobby to do it without reference to any party affiliation,
Right.
and that's true. But I will say that some of the issues that the League has voted on and taken a position on become, in the public mind, associated with the Democrats or the Republicans, so that when we lobby on some of our school-related issues, I think that there are people who would think that it's because we're Democrats. It's not. Similarly, when we lobby for some of our transportation-related issues, people think, well, this is a Republican pro-business point of view. It's not. It's something that we've taken up from grassroots and we bring up to the state level or to the local level.
And as it is, I'm sure the League of Women Voters of Connecticut has people on both sides. Like you said, you're not a political party per se, but
No,
you
we're
have
not.
people that are part of your group that have views on one side or the other. Now, once you're in, how do you put your own personal political views aside when you're, lobbying for a particular issue?
I don't think you can. I think you do make it known to the people that you're lobbying
Right.
that this is a league position, it's not a personal position.
And do you make that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
We try very hard. In my own league, we have had members on the board, the local board, simultaneously who are members of the Democratic Town Committee and the Republican Town Committee.
Yeah.
It can be made to work.
Now, look, I just want to ask you about, just as we sit here and as the show is taped, some hot button topics. Because it's always fun to hear what's coming across your desk and what the next move is and people's opinions and things of that sort.
I don't know what constitutes a hot button topic at the moment that we're doing. I do know that when the State League and the National League took position on women's right to choose whether to abort a fetus or not, we lost members.
Is that
There's
right,
no
really?
question. And there are issues that when we take a position, people who have argued passionately during the study process for one side or another may feel that our position is not reasonable, and they will drop out, and that happens, and we deplore it. What we say to our members is, you don't have to agree with us to be a member of the league. We do ask that when you lobby your local or your state rep, that if you're taking your own position and it's not the league position, you don't pretend to be speaking for the
On
league.
behalf of, right? How does one become a member of the league?
One joins.
Okay.
If you go to our website, www.lwvct.org, and you go down the left-hand column of buttons, there is a Join Us button. You click on that, you fill out the form, you send in a check. We will get you to the right league.
Is it? Are there always new members joining, and are you always looking for new people to join?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
In the last 5 years or so, we've probably had 1,000 new members. That barely compensates for the people who move out of state, retire, and die.
Yeah.
So we've been keeping pretty constant at something like 1,800 members, give or take, statewide.
If somebody's out of state, they can't really be. Can they be an associate member in some way? Or?
We don't limit
Okay.
league membership to people who are in state, but we strongly recommend, since there are leagues in every state, that you join the league where you live.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that most of what we do ultimately impacts things that go on at a voting level, either your vote when you go into the polling place, or your representatives vote when he goes into the state legislature, or your town council members vote when he sits on the town council. So if you're in a league which isn't where you live or work,
Yeah.
it's a problem.
It's awkward, too.
It's ridiculous. It's if you're not interested in changing the way things operate, you're probably not interested in league.
Yeah.
And if you are interested in changing the way things operate, you're better off in your home district.
And like we mentioned with Judy in the first segment, men are certainly welcome
Yes.
to join too. Now, is that segment growing,
Yes, it is.
even despite the name?
Despite the name. This coming year, I believe we will have for the first time 3 of the local presidents within Connecticut will be men,
Wow, that's great.
out of 28 local leagues. So
Being a nonprofit and being in the economic times that we're in, do you feel that just like everybody else does, or maybe not so much for you?
I've got good news for you viewers. It looks to us like the economy may be turning around.
And I was just going to ask you that. I often ask that of people, their point of view. Can you see a light at the end of the tunnel? And you're telling me right now, yes.
Donations are up.
Okay. I've always found a lot of nonprofits come on this show, and it's amazing. They always seem to say people are willing to give. They'll dig into their purse and their wallet.
We find, quite frankly, that we have been incredibly lucky in terms of people being willing to donate, but we have regularly managed to meet our projections for what we hope to receive. And I've got to say that our members, and quite frankly non-members, just members of the public who are grateful for a debate that we've done or a position that we've taken, we couldn't get by without them.
Are things different for you now that this is an election year? Are you busier because of it? More things coming across your desk, so to speak?
In my case, yes, because more people call the state office with technical questions. How do I register?
Right.
How do I find out where to vote? But you've got to remember that in Connecticut, every year is an election year.
Right.
In odd-numbered years, it's always local.
Mm-hmm. Municipal stuff.
Right, that's right. And in even years, it's either presidential or U.S. House and U.S. Senate and state legislature and maybe governor, so that in every even-numbered year, there is a big group of non-local people who are running for office. And of course, this year being a presidential year. What we find is that turnout varies.
Right.
But
the municipals are always a lesser
always
turnout,
low, and
yeah.
I don't understand it because, quite frankly,
It's your local, it's your community.
it's where you live, it's where you pay the bulk of your taxes.
Yeah.
If you're a homeowner, you know it. And if you're a renter, you don't realize it, but part of your rent is your landlords paying that real property tax.
Right, and even
that's local.
even if you're a renter, your car tax is being paid to your municipality, and the mill rate of your town, if you complain about it, and you don't go and vote, then you don't really have a right to complain, I guess, right?
Well, you have a right to complain,
Yeah,
but what we
nothing
say
will
is,
get done.
if you don't vote, don't complain.
Right, absolutely.
The slogan the league has that I like the best is, democracy is not a spectator sport.
And you got to be involved in it.
If you want it to work,
Proactive.
and also, I caused a minor riot in a course that I was guest lecturing at Fairfield U a while back, because the kids were frankly not convinced of the necessity for voting. And I looked at them and I said, if you're letting somebody else make the decisions for you when you have the ability to influence them, you're stupid.
Yeah.
That did not go over well, but I will say that by the end of the class, every one of those kids had taken out a voter registration form.
Very nice. Good job. That's a great way to wrap up the show on. We're going to put the graphic up one more time for the website for people to go and learn more and maybe get involved if they can. Jean, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting us.
And hopefully people learned a little bit more about the League of Women Voters of Connecticut today. So thanks. And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. We will see you next time. Take care.